Most people believe McLaren was created by a wealthy corporate empire, backed by millions of dollars and elite European dynasties. But that is completely wrong. The foundation of one of the most dominant racing and supercar empires on Earth was actually built by an isolated 25-year-old mechanic and driver from New Zealand, working out of a small, rented dirt floor workshop in England. He had no industrial backing, no factory, and almost zero capital. Yet, within a few short years, this small operation defeated the most powerful automotive giants in the world. How did a modest garage project turn into a multi-billion-dollar global brand? The real answer is not just horsepower. It is a hidden masterclass in founder psychology, cash flow survival, and high-stakes engineering strategy. To understand this transformation, we have to look past the myth of the poor electrician and examine the real human reality. Bruce McLaren was not an impoverished laborer, but he was born into an environment where resources were painfully limited. His father ran a modest service station and workshop in Remuera, Auckland. This was not a glamorous racing stable. It was a working garage filled with oily tools, disassembled engines, and commercial vehicle batteries. Growing up in that workshop, young Bruce did not learn racing theory from elite schools. He learned practical mechanics from the ground up, rewiring electrical circuits, stripping down chassis, and understanding why mechanical parts fail under stress. Then, at just 9 years old, an unexpected crisis struck that nearly destroyed his life before it even started. Bruce was diagnosed with Perth's disease, a painful hip disorder that attacks the bone tissue. For 2 long years, he was confined to a hospital bed, strapped into traction, unable to walk normally. Most children would have broken under that isolation, but for Bruce, those 2 years shifted his psychology entirely. When your physical body is paralyzed, your mind is forced to develop extreme analytical patience. He was left with a permanent limp and uneven legs, but he emerged from that hospital with a relentless drive to prove that physical limitations would never define his future. Back in the garage, he channeled that mental obsession straight into building cars. At 15, he took an old, worn-out 1929 Austin Ulster, stripped it down bolt by bolt with his father, re-engineered the engine, and began winning local hill climb competitions. He was not just driving fast. He was diagnosing the machine with his senses. He could feel tiny vibrations in the suspension and hear electrical misfires that other drivers completely missed. Local race victories earned him the prestigious Driver to Europe scholarship in 1958. He arrived in England with minimal funding, a single mechanic friend named Colin Beanland, and an ancient station wagon. In the elite European racing circuits, established teams looked at this young colonial outsider as just another temporary underdog. They were dead wrong. At just 22 years old, driving for the Cooper Racing Team, Bruce won the 1959 United States Grand Prix, becoming the youngest Grand Prix winner in Formula One history at the time. He had reached the absolute summit of professional motorsport. He had fame, high driver earnings, and guaranteed contracts with top factory teams. Yet, right at the peak of his driving career, Bruce McLaren made a radical, high-risk decision that shocked the entire paddock. He decided to walk away from corporate safety and risk all his personal savings to start his own independent company, Bruce McLaren Motor Racing. Why would a top driver with guaranteed paychecks take on crushing overhead, payroll stress, and the brutal odds of running a manufacturing startup? Because Bruce had discovered a fundamental flaw in the traditional automotive business model. In the early 1960s, massive corporate race teams were slow, bureaucratic, and dominated by committee decisions. If a car broke on Sunday, the engineering department took months to approve a redesign. Bruce realized that the team that could shorten the feedback loop between the driver's hands and the workshop's wrench would dominate the sport. In 1963, operating out of a tiny workshop in New Malden, Bruce assembled a tiny band of brilliant fabricators, including visionary designer Robin Hurd and mechanic Tyler Alexander. Their initial working conditions were brutal. They did not have multi-million-dollar testing facilities. They worked 18-hour days, breathing in fiberglass dust and welding fumes, figuring out aerodynamics by instinct and road testing. Their first Formula One car, the M2B, debuted in 1966. On paper, it was an engineering marvel built with innovative aerospace materials. In reality, it was an absolute business nightmare. The experimental engines they sourced were heavy, unreliable, and underpowered. Race after race, the engines blew apart on the track. Capital was burning rapidly. In racing, if you do not finish races, you do not collect prize money. If you do not collect prize money, your mechanics do not get paid. Bruce was staring into financial ruin. The startup was burning cash, and competitors expected them to shut down by the end of the season. That was the exact moment Bruce executed the hidden business pivot that saved the entire company. Instead of stubbornly wasting all his remaining capital trying to beat factory giants in Formula One with bad engines, Bruce looked across the Atlantic toward North America. A brand-new, regulation-free sports car series called the Can-Am Championship was launching. There were no engine displacement limits, no weight restrictions, and most importantly, the prize purses were massive. Bruce made an aggressive strategic bet. He pulled resources, secured reliable, high-displacement American V8 engines from Chevrolet, and designed a lightweight, aerodynamically ruthless prototype called the M6A. To guarantee psychological dominance on the grid, he painted the cars in a bright, unmistakable hue, papaya orange. When the 1967 Can-Am season began, the result was complete devastation. The small British-based team from New Malden won 5 out of 6 races. Over the next 5 years, the McLaren team won an astonishing 43 out of 71 races, dominating the championship so completely that the media labeled it the Bruce and Denny Show. But here is the brilliant business strategy that most historians completely overlook. Winning prize money was great for survival, but prize money alone cannot scale a permanent manufacturing empire. Prize money is unpredictable. One blown gasket or rainstorm can wipe out an entire quarter's profit. Bruce understood that he needed a scalable, predictable B2B revenue model. So he partnered with a specialized manufacturing company called Trojan. The strategy was genius. Bruce's core team would design, test, and race the cutting-edge factory prototypes. Once the design was proven to dominate every track, Trojan would mass-produce identical customer chassis to sell directly to private racing teams around the world. Suddenly, McLaren was not just a racing team surviving on prize money. They were a high-margin vehicle manufacturer with global distribution. Wealthy private drivers and racing organizations queued up to buy McLaren customer cars because they knew these machines were proven winners. This customer car pipeline generated steady, reliable cash flow that directly funded their Formula One ambitions and advanced research. By 1968, that cash flow bore fruit. At the daunting Spa-Francorchamps circuit in Belgium, Bruce drove his own car across the finish line to claim the team's first-ever Formula One victory. He had transformed from an isolated mechanic into a winning constructor, team owner, and international industrialist. Then, at the absolute height of their momentum, tragedy struck with devastating force. On June 2, 1970, while test-driving a new Can-Am car on the Goodwood Circuit Straight, the rear bodywork detached at extreme speed. The car lost aerodynamic downforce instantly, spun off the track, and crashed. Bruce McLaren died instantly. He was only 32 years old. The automotive world was stunned. Without its visionary founder, lead test driver, chief engineer, and moral center, everyone assumed McLaren Motor Racing would collapse within months. Most founder-dependent startups die when the founder dies. But Bruce had quietly built something far more resilient than just a personal brand. He had created an obsessive engineering culture grounded in transparent communication, flat hierarchy, and relentless continuous improvement. His core team, led by Teddy Mayer and Tyler Alexander, chose not to shut down. Instead, they went back to the workshop the very next morning. Just weeks after Bruce's death, the grieving team showed up at the next race and won. Over the next decade, That foundational culture allowed McLaren to win Formula One World Championships with legendary drivers like Emerson Fittipaldi and James Hunt. Then, in 1980, the business entered its next transformative era under the leadership of Ron Dennis. Dennis merged his Project 4 operation with McLaren and immediately engineered the next massive technological leap: the introduction of the carbon fiber composite monocoque chassis in Formula One. Every rival team laughed at the idea, claiming carbon fiber was brittle and dangerous. But McLaren proved it was lighter, stiffer, and vastly safer than aluminum. Within 3 years, every single racing team on the planet was forced to copy McLaren's architecture. During the late 1980s, McLaren achieved arguably the most dominant period in motorsport history, winning 15 out of 16 races in a single season with Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. Yet the ultimate test of Bruce's original vision came in the early 1990s, when McLaren decided to conquer the commercial consumer market. Legendary designer Gordon Murray teamed up with McLaren to build the ultimate road car, the McLaren F1. Featuring a 3-seat layout with the driver positioned dead center, an engine bay lined with real gold foil for thermal reflection, and a naturally aspirated V12, the McLaren F1 became the fastest production car in the world, hitting over 240 miles per hour. To prove its flawless engineering, a racing version of this road car entered the prestigious 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1995 against dedicated racing prototypes, and won the entire race on its very first attempt. Today, McLaren stands as a multi-billion-dollar technology and supercar powerhouse, producing some of the most advanced hybrid hypercars, composite structures, and telemetry systems in existence. When you look back at that extraordinary empire, the real lesson is not about luck, prestige, or unlimited capital. It is the story of a boy with a damaged hip in an Auckland service station who realized that true competitive advantage is not bought. It is built. Bruce McLaren proved that if you master your craft at the lowest level, eliminate unnecessary bureaucracy, shorten your feedback loops, and build an unshakable team culture, a small garage can outthink, outbuild, and outrun the largest corporations on Earth.